ahead and call this meeting of the Police Advisory Council to order for June 22nd, 2022. We do not actually have a quorum. We are waiting on one more member, but what we thought we would do is go ahead and get started on the parts that don't need a quorum for action. And so we will come back to the agenda review and minutes review, but we'll proceed to see if there are. I would love to invite our state attorney up to come and say hello and tell us what could be a future topic from you at a future police advisory council meeting.
First of all, I missed last month. I was going to try and be here as often as I can,
Ooh,
I actually.
Hello, everyone.
all right.
Hey,
We just quorumed right there, so you're cool. Keep going.
no problem. So after the last meeting, I prepared a PowerPoint presentation. I think everybody probably got a copy of it to discuss the nature and the quantity and all of the different diversion, deflection, and court and therapeutic courts that we have, that we work with, and that we're running through my office. And so in speaking with Deborah, I got word back that you all might want to have some further conversation about that either next month or the month after that. So I'm going to work with Deborah to let me know when she wants me to be ready to do that. But I did want to come and check in with you all to say hello again. I saw Sheila recently.
Yay.
And just find out if you had any questions or concerns about anything that's come up since the last time I was here. If I can answer your questions or anything that's happened. I can report on some of the major events that we are very enthusiastic about.
I think you should go tell us some of the stuff you're excited about.
Well, one of the things that I've been working with the chief on a lot is how are we going to address, firearms crimes, violence in the community. And we had an indictment. It was actually an Alachua County Sheriff's Office case, but it still will affect, I think, the city. We indicted 10 defendants on RICO and murder and robbery and multiple various firearms crimes, which was really targeted. It's targeted at gang activity that's driving gun violence in the community, and it was an investigation that targeted the entire gang to the extent that we knew the individuals who were in the gang and who had committed criminal acts, which included a murder and robberies. And there was sort of one individual who was an older person who is going into the community, finding younger individuals, convincing them to do crimes because they're juveniles or because they're just coming from juvenile to being an adult, and had really been creating a tremendous amount of violent crime in the community. We indicted all of them. All but one of them are now in jail. And so we hope not only is that going to affect violent crime, but it's also going to be sort of a paradigm that we can use to directly target the gangs that are causing the violence in the community.
Of those that were indicted, what was the general range of age?
I think the oldest one is in his mid-30s and the youngest one is around 18. I don't think any of them are still juveniles, but some of them are quite young. And the vast majority of them are under 22.
Yeah.
So RICO is more of a complex statute, and it can cover a long period of time. This covered 4 years. So some of the crimes that were charged can be a little confusing because, like for instance, we've charged many of them with possession of a firearm by a delinquent or a person who has committed a delinquent act, right? But that doesn't mean that they were a delinquent at the time. They could have been, but it is different when you say possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. It means that they might be only 18 years old, have no felony convictions, but they have been previously adjudicated delinquent of a delinquent act, and that is a serious second-degree felony.
And did those that were indicted, did they grow up in Gainesville?
I think so.
Generally?
Yeah. And if they weren't, they've been here for a good long time. These are folks who are heavily involved in the community. Yeah. I see two hands.
I thought I got a hint. You're saying that this group was particularly recruiting young people just because they are, they
Yeah.
get less time or they
Sure.
get lighter charges.
Sure,
and
because
using them.
juveniles, if you commit a crime while you're a juvenile, the chances of you receiving a harsh sentence are very low. And certainly, that is actually factually true because we don't, like, for instance, no juvenile goes from juvenile court to adult court without me reviewing the case and personally authorizing it. So we treat that as very, very serious. It's a lot of consideration, a lot of different factors that go into that. So it's actually true. Like, they've hit something that's real.
Thank you.
This is mostly gang-related,
It's 100% gang related.
and we have the issue that the people getting arrested now, they're going to jail, and they're going to become, they may be good at gangs, but when they get out, they're going to be expert at gangs. Because, that's the pipeline.
Sure, well, not only that, but
Yeah.
remember, the prisons are full of gangs.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. And, I applaud that you're getting the people who are, the ones who need to be off the street, and ones that are corrupting youth and offering a little bling and getting them to, we know that picture. But what happens when these people get out of jail? If it's not murder, we're going to see them 10 years, 20 years, whatever. What happens then?
They become a burden for our society,
Yeah.
mostly.
Yeah, it's a problem because there's very little reformation in the prisons.
Almost none.
Yeah, I know in Portugal where they decided we're going to reform the prisoners that can be, and the ones that can't be, we're going to keep them in there.
Right.
And they cut the prison population, I think, by half, and the crime by more than that.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's tough for you because
Right.
you only have the
But-
entranceway. You don't have the middle and the exit.
But understand, next month or the month after that, I'm going to come show you the other side of what we're doing.
I'd
right?
love to see it.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
totally. I've sent the PowerPoint out. I'm ready to do it. I'll do it anytime you guys want me to do it.
I love
Because
it.
we're super proud of it.
Okay.
Okay, but these are really two opposite ends of the state attorney's office, which is when we're seeing first-time offenders, people who are committing nuisance types of crimes, those type of things, we are making the most effort in the state of Florida to prevent those people from entering into what you are describing as the pipeline, right?
Okay.
But
Yeah.
when we get to this other end, where we're talking about individuals who have committed robbery, murder, shooting into people's homes, drive-by shootings, these type of things, it is not, my job is very, very clear in those circumstances. My job is to enforce the law
Yeah.
and to
Yeah.
administer the penalty that to seek the administration of the penalty that is appropriate for those offenses. The middle is different. There's a middle ground in there that we really need to work on, and we do work on it. And we're trying to be more cognizant of it. And I've got some other things coming up that I'll be speaking to the county commission about trying to be more fair in sentencing, right? So try to use data to drive sentencing, those type of activities,
Excellent.
to look in the middle. Because all I'm really talking to you now is about one end and the other.
Okay. I really appreciate what you're saying.
Okay, yes.
Could you let us know when you're going to be talking to the county commission? Because I used to watch them all, but I don't anymore.
So, yes, I'll tell you right
Will
now
it be
exactly
a
what it is
public
that
meeting? A public
if they
meeting?
want me at a public meeting, yes, but it's the budget. I've asked, in a nutshell, I've asked the county commission to fund a project in my office that will use data to drive sentencing. So what I'm meeting with them about individually, because I can't meet with them,
Right.
I can't meet with them together unless it's at a noticed meeting, is just to educate them as to what this is. Then there will be a budget meeting, which is public, and I'm sure you understand the process probably better than me, they can pull me off of that budget meeting and put me onto a main county commission meeting if they choose to, right? But it's a lot of time for a lot of folks to sit there and listen to me go on about my computer system in my office and how this is all going to work and the weeds of this situation and how score sheets work, and there's a lot of weedy stuff that eyes will glaze over.
Bobby's coming on his own. I don't think I'm gonna be in that,
Okay, good.
that data meeting you're having with him.
Right,
Can I
right.
ask something else?
Sure, absolutely.
So it was a bill, so I can't, I wasn't listening carefully, but either a bill or Governor DeSantis wants now 5 or more items that are lifted from a store will now be a second-degree felony. That
Oh,
came out
okay.
today.
I know what you're talking about. Mhm.
Yeah. Do you know about that? And y'all would
Yes.
have to
I mean,
follow that, right?
Well, yes. So I think what you're talking about is in California, and I think in some points in Florida, we've seen like a
Right.
mob theft, where a huge group of people go in, overwhelm the security in a store, take lots of very expensive items, and leave. There's really nothing the store can do about it. Not a lot of anybody could do about it, if they didn't have the right people present when that happens. So, yes, I'm aware that that bill is out there. I'm aware that that is going to be a new crime in the state of Florida. Your question is, do I have to enforce it? Yes, but all prosecution comes with discretion. So, obviously, and I don't remember,
It's not
I'll
a
trust you
mom
at
that's
5.
shoplifting.
I'll
Yeah,
trust
it's
you at
5
5.
and 10.
Okay, because normally, like in a non-mob situation, and I'm sure like one of the police officers could tell you more than me, sometimes we'll see 1 or 2 people, or 2 people working in concert, maybe the most 3, where you have one person who's a lookout, one person who's doing the thieving of the actual item, and that's the most sort of cooperative nature that we see in normal circumstances. You get 5 people working together, that's literally is a criminal conspiracy. It could be a RICO if it's been done more than once, which is already a first-degree felony. So it's another tool in the prosecutorial tool chest to charge people with crimes that fit exactly what they're doing. But we already have very general crimes that we can use to apply to that circumstance. And we would already treat that behavior very, very seriously.
See, I misheard. What I heard was 5 items. I was doing it
Oh.
while I was working. And
Yeah.
I thought a mom going in and stealing
No.
diapers, so it's 5
No,
people.
no.
Well,
I
they said
think
over
it's 5.
several different instances too, it's not
Yeah.
5 at one time.
Right, it was over several.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, no, if one person steals multiple items, we can aggregate the value of those items to reach additional height thresholds for charging. So that height threshold right now is $750 to become a felony, so anything below $750 is a misdemeanor. Below $300 is a second degree misdemeanor, am I right? Is it $100? It's either 100 or 300, some other number is a second degree misdemeanor, first degree misdemeanor, third degree felony, and then I think you got to get to
5,000.
5,000 to get to a second degree felony, and then above 50,000 is a first degree felony. So, yeah, I think it's going to be aggregation of people, not
Okay, okay.
items.
I
Yeah.
did
Yeah, that's a
mishear.
totally different scene than
Yeah.
I think you're thinking
Then
of.
someone, I mean, I know people have gotten busted for shoplifting
Sure.
diapers. It's
I
kind
have
of common.
defended someone for shoplifting diapers in my
Yeah.
career, so I understand.
Yeah.
Grapes and diapers, I
Yeah.
understand.
Wow, yeah.
We try very hard to avoid those circumstances in my office. If people are caught stealing diapers, we try to divert those cases very much. I literally have had cases where the police officer goes in and pays for the diapers
Yeah.
and then has to, do whatever it is that they have to do, what they're required to do, and they put, "I paid for the diapers," in the report and send it to us. And then we generally try not to file those, because the rules for prosecutors say it's a 2-part analysis. First part is, can you prove the crime? The second part of the analysis is, does the proving of the crime further the interests of justice? So we always make a 2-part analysis of every crime. So poor mother stealing diapers generally fails the second part of that analysis.
Thank you for spelling that out, because I think, that's really the discretionary part and how you apply it all, but that's always really important for us to hear. Are there any other questions of Mr. Kramer before we?
Because I'm not going to stick around for the whole meeting.
Yeah, we'll hold you, we'll let you go tonight, but we will be calling you back for a
Yeah,
presentation.
and I'll try and come whether I've given the presentation or
Okay,
not.
we know you will be here.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, it's great to see you. All right, well, we're going to jump back in the proposed agenda, back to agenda review, and I wanted to, how do we feel about tonight's agenda? We would like to make a
I move
motion.
approval of the agenda. Madam Chair.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And then the second is our minutes review from our last meeting. Is there a motion? Okay, is there a second? All right, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Can I make a comment,
Yes,
Madam Chair?
yes, please.
These minutes are, I guess I'd say minimally adequate, but, you know, I think minutes might probably include important points that we bring up, important questions that
They
we bring
can,
up,
or-
challenges or questions that we
They
think are
can,
fundamental.
it's a fine line, because I
And,
know Miss Deborah has written down every single thing. I've seen it, and I know she takes forever, and to put it all together, because that's listening and transcribing, but on the other hand, so
I'm
I'm
not
happy
looking for
to.
pages and pages.
All right, well,
When I was on the
point
the
taken,
housing
and we'll
board,
see
I
that
complained and they gave me
if there's a
10
little
page
more
minutes.
inclusion, but not too much, because you have a lot going on. But the good news is these meetings are recorded, so we can
Yeah.
enjoy them to our heart's
Just things that
content.
seem to be like challenge points or important points of
Fair, well, the discussion is, so
clarification,
I
yeah.
get that, I do. But is there anything, did we vote on the minutes yet?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I want to make sure. Okay. Our chief's update for our acting chief, Lonnie Scott. And so he's going to talk first about the monthly arrest report and other exciting highlights of GPD. And by the way, you had a lot of publicity at the Kelly opening, and so I saw lots of photos of you.
Thank you. Good to be here, Dan. Good evening for all of you. And I want to start off the meeting by thanking Mr. Johnson for bringing a deficit to our attention that upon review, we modified our GPA policy because we found out we did not have in that policy a requirement to explain why you didn't do it. So we made some modifications to it. Did they send it out? Did we send that out to them?
I didn't see that.
Okay.
No, because
Okay.
you have to give me the final.
All right, so once we get that final product, we made some additions to it, went back, trying to make it a little simpler for the officers to follow. And that's I think one of the statements is that maybe it's a little more too convoluted for the officers to understand exactly how. But we thought it was important that they explain. We're not ordering them to use it, but we want them to explain why they didn't, why they elected not to. So appreciate that help in that document. For tonight, I'll go over the adult and juvenile arrest for you. I think as you can see from the slide that we had 64 felonies and 51 misdemeanor arrests. You can see the demographic breakdown. You see it's a little different. What's interesting to me is that when you look at the felonies, there are more black males and black females together that are arrested as opposed to white males. But when you look at the misdemeanors, you see that they kind of even out there. In fact, it may be, it's almost even as far as the number of arrests for that. You look at and this is the adult arrest, you look at the breakdown of it, see that simple battery, domestic battery, is the leading cause of arrest. That's 15 total, followed by trespass after warning, and that's 10. And then simple battery with 9 arrests, and the first felony is possession of controlled substance with 8, followed by aggravated assault as this second felony with 5. We sent you or provided you with all the supportive documentation so that you could look at it at your will. I know there was some questions about how the data fell out, so you could examine that. And we asked for any questions and didn't really get any reference to that. The questions I did get, I'll cover that later on when we get to that section that came from Ms. Payne, and I'll talk about that later. The sworn complaints for adults and felonies, adults with felony and misdemeanors again, the demographic breakdown there is really almost similar for both categories as far as demographics. The leading arrest, leading sworn complaint charges for petty theft, followed by simple domestic battery, and simple battery, followed by petty theft. Again, the first petty theft was retail, and the fourth item on this list is petty theft in general. Grand theft follows, and that's the $750 to $4,999. That's the felony theft. Next category is gainful pre-arrest, adult, misdemeanor. We had three. That was 3 white females, and they were all for alcohol violations, possession by a person under 21 years of age. Next category deals with notice to appear.
Quick question, were those on the same case?
I don't know if it was the same case, but more than likely, yeah. But don't really have the specific information as to whether or not it was the same incident. Next incident is a notice to appear. This is a misdemeanor. We issued one to a white female. It was a petty theft, retail. Next category deals with juvenile arrest, felony misdemeanor. As you can see that there were 6 black females and 11 black males, 1 white female were arrested for juvenile felonies. 1 misdemeanor, and that was a black male. The breakdown on charges, there were 7 that were charged for burglary to unoccupied conveyance. Again, this goes back to what we told you was one of our primary problems, particularly with guns. You know, we have groups of juveniles, groups of young adults that travel throughout the city, going into different neighborhoods, trying door handles and going into unlocked cars, and that's where they're finding the most firearms, and they're stealing firearms out of the cars. It's a recurring thing. It happens weekly for sure, and these groups go out, and that's how they're arming themselves. Why a reasonable adult would leave a firearm in an unlocked car, I have no idea. I know at one time there was some discussion about possibly making that a crime. I don't know if that's still being pursued or not, but I mean, does it take someone taking a gun from your car and killing someone before you realize how reckless that is? And we're talking about kids 13, 14, 15 years of age that are out there doing this stuff, finding these guns. The juvenile arrests continued as far as the number of arrests. We had 2 grand theft auto, 2 aggravated assault, 2 carjacking. Again, carjacking while carrying a firearm. I mean, these are juveniles with firearms, you know, and that's one of our primary concerns and one of our primary efforts to try to address that and reduce that particular issue. Juvenile sworn complaints, the next slide, felony to misdemeanor. You see they had a total of 5 felonies. They were all black males. There were 5 misdemeanor sworn complaints for juveniles. 3 of those were black males and 2 were black females. I'm corrected. 3 were black females and 2 were black males. You see the crimes listed here. Number 1 is robbery, unarmed. And that could be somebody snatching something or just forcing it through threat. Battery on a detention or commitment facility staff. There were 2 of those. 2 simple battery charges. 1 robbery by sudden snatching, and 1 commits lewd or lascivious battery upon person under 16. All of these are serious crimes and typically have victims who suffer some type of mental and or physical anguish. The next slide deals with juvenile civil citations. The breakdown here, the total of 14. You can see the next slide shows that there were 5 simple batteries, 4 sexting prohibited acts, 2 criminal misdemeanors, criminal mischief misdemeanors, and 1 drug violation. That concludes the arrest summary. Ms. Payne has some questions, and I'll go over those and provide the answers that I have. Did we send you a written response, Ms. Payne?
I didn't see it, I check my
Okay.
email every day.
Okay, so the first question was you would like information on trespass after warning, and reference an arrest. Policewoman told the manager of the restaurant where we were engaged in peacefully fleeing to say that she did not want me on the premises. In Florida, trespass is an automatic 24-hour stay. This is a very serious charge. A response to that is trespass after warning is a decision that's really made by the property owner. You know, so if we're on site, if the property owner says, no, I don't want to do anything, we don't have anything to it. It's initiated by the property owner. So the property owner and or manager of that property has the right to have anyone trespass on the property that they choose to, particularly if it's a person they've asked to leave. This can be, again, initiated by either the person on the property, or it can be initiated by an officer if it's posted. So if the property has proper posting, and the posting is, the lettering has to be a certain size, it has to be so many placed on the four corners of the property, spaced somewhat far apart. It has to be almost at every point of ingress and egress, so that a person, when they enter the property, they're entering the property with knowledge that they shouldn't be there. If a fence is there, that helps to support that concept that they shouldn't be there. The property has legal silence is outlined in the Florida State statute. If all that's done and they've completed a trespass authorization for us, then we are authorized, once that occurs, and depending on the nature of the property, that we can initiate that contact and arrest.
Okay, so how long do y'all keep body worn camera? Because I think after all these years, I should probably try to investigate it. Because that's not how it happened, but I don't want to take up everyone's time here.
Body-worn camera footage is, it depends on whether or not if it was for a crime, there's a state requirement that we keep it so for so many years, and I'm not sure what that is right now. 7 years. So if it was something that happened within the last 7 years.
Charges were never filed, but,
If charges were never filed, then I don't think
It's 6 months,
it's,
sir.
yeah,
It's 6
Okay.
months
yeah,
if no charges were filed.
okay. All right, the next question you had, how many TAW the officer initiated. You saw in one of the closeout A cases, we looked at how many homeless TAWs were people who were trying to sleep somewhere. The request, for us to figure that out, we have to have the analyst read every report to figure out exactly how that, and we weren't able to do that, to get that information back in a timely manner. The next question is, I am still very uncomfortable with the GPA coordinator making a final decision. And it's a little more statements here, but just a summary. Ms. Charlotte Head Jones makes a referral to the state attorney's office. The state attorney's office has a criteria that they utilize in applying the GPA. It's really a decision that's made at the state attorney's office once they get it. We make the referral, they make the decision. You know, they take in consideration what we referred, make an evaluation on the whole person, and they determine whether or not the person's going to be afforded that opportunity or not.
I beat Mr. Kramer over the head with that. He also concurred with what you're saying.
Okay. I think there was some question about what were the eligible offenses for GPA. What's not eligible is domestic and or dating violence. Domestic and or dating violence injunctions a violation of pretrial release, loitering and prowling, animal abuse, DUI, and any other misdemeanor traffic charge, stalking, and exposure of sexual organs. I think you can see that most of these are person crimes and things where people might be at jeopardy. You know, if you have a domestic violence situation, if you have a domestic violence injunction, you have a violation of pretrial release, hey, you are not to have contact with that person, and you're going to do that, we don't need to be issuing you a GPA. You know, that means you're continuing a pattern that's putting someone's life or their property, primarily their person, in danger. And so those are the things that are not. The other thing that we went through this and kind of clarified a little bit. Person has to be 18, they have to have identification, they have to, not have a valid felony within the past 3 years. So you can have a felony charge, but not a valid felony.
What, quick question,
Yeah.
why is the misdemeanor traffic on there?
Does that state statute?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
every misdemeanor traffic offense is an arrest.
Yeah, if it's a criminal, it's a criminal violation, and you know, but the state statute guides some of this policy as far as what we created. The other than that, the eligible violation occurred during an incident in which the person was also charged with another ineligible offense. So, if we have a person that's they have a misdemeanor charge that we could do a GPA for, but they also committed stalking, well, we're not going to give them a GPA. We're going to charge them on both of those. Again, we tried to make it a little simpler for our officers. The offender must not have participated in the program more than 2 times in their lifetime. And we had a list of a few more items, but we cut that down. We wanted to make sure that our folks were able to quickly go through it and encourage them to use it as opposed to not use it. So I tried to make sure that we addressed the issues that were brought forth by Ms. Payne. She had another question. The state attorney excluded cases including arrests because other diversion programs exist for those arrested. The goal is to lessen arrests and jail entry. Why separate court services diversion programs? We wanted to give every opportunity to the individuals to participate in the diversion program. As far as why that happened that way, that's something really, I think because of the different programs that exist, different parameters, you know, and it all kind of rests at the state attorney's office at that point as to which program they're going to initiate or use. I think that's the answer for that one. The last question I have is victim consent. Who is the victim in shoplifting, business property crimes, trespass warnings, if initiated by the police? It's the business. You know, Walmart, when they call us, they're the victim. If you take something from Walmart, you take something from Publix, just like if someone took something from you, you're the victim in that case. So that's basically the victim. And typically, if the victim says, yeah, I want to prosecute, I want to pursue charge, we're going to do that. Now, if they say, I'm not going to do that, I do not want, then it may be handled differently. You know, but we have to have a victim to have a crime. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for going through that. I really appreciate that. And I appreciate Ms. Payne putting her thoughts on paper and kind of getting the questions together, because these are things, you know, some of them have complex answers, some are easier, but I think that's a really great approach. I think that helps, because then we can hear the question and the answer in a prepared way.
Yeah, it helped us as far as prepare. I hate to come to you and you have a question, I said, well, let me go check on that and we'll get back with that. I'd like to be able to give you the answer. So we try to provide as much information as we could so that when you look at it, if you have questions, we'll come prepared to answer those questions, and we'll continue that practice. Any other questions on this section?
Any questions? Seeing none, I'd say jump in and tell us everything you can tell us about proactive versus reactive initial contact.
Okay, so proactive versus reactive. Proactive means that the officer initiated it. The officer saw something that he or she thought that she needed to make contact with an individual, investigate a situation, and determine if a crime has occurred, and if that crime has occurred, take the necessary actions. And when we looked at the breakdown, and you asked for this breakdown, so we provided it. I think when we did this was March, and so you have March's data. We show that adult arrest, proactive versus reactive. Proactive arrest, you can see there's a big difference here in that we don't have as many proactive arrests as we do reactive. And the logic behind that, I mean, we showed up with, I don't have totals on here, but you can see the differences by just the graphs there, that that we have way more reactive arrests, and the logic behind that is we don't have a lot of our staff in this challenge, so officers can't be out there proactively as much as we would like them to be out there trying to prevent the crime and deter the crime. And when we get called, we respond, and those arrests that you see in reactive is because we responded to a call from a citizen that said, hey, there's an issue here, I need assistance, or I'm witnessing something, the police need to get here. So that's why you see that the vast majority of that is reactive. If we had more police officers, we might be able to prevent some of that from happening. Be a little more. It's really a dual-edged sword in that more police officers also will prevent or deter some of that crime, but it also allows us to take more proactive measures that allow us to get ahead of it. We may find people in possession of guns who are not supposed to be in possession of guns. We may catch people breaking into cars. And again, we're dealing with reported crime. And even when we give you the other statistics, you have to realize that there is a certain amount of crime that's never reported. You know, if you go out on your back porch and you find out that your chair was stolen, you may or may not report that. Plants are stolen. In some municipalities and some other law enforcement jurisdictions, they won't even take a report on that. If it doesn't reach a certain threshold, they won't take a report on it. It's not considered, because the staffing, they just don't have staffing to deal with it.
Mr. Johnson, you have a question?
What would you attribute to the difference in race and gender? The black males is at almost a little bit above 50% ratio, but then white males falls off, as well as both female categories.
Are you speaking specifically to reactive or all of it?
Both of them, in comparison.
That's the, again, it's interesting that the proactive almost reflects the reactive, in that there are more in the proactive than with black males being arrested, and when you look at the reactive, it's the same. That just means that they're more involved, quite frankly, in the crimes, because the folks are calling us and saying, hey, you know, I'm a victim, I'm being victimized, or something's happening, and we're responding there, and it's really, the proactive reflecting, quite frankly, that same level. That's why when we talk about this, we said, you know, this is a community problem. It's not something we can solve. We as a community have to come up with, why is that occurring?
Is there a possibility that there's not an expectation for certain demographics to commit crimes?
No, I mean, you know, we focus on the behavior. So when we have alert tones that go out, when something serious is going on, we get an alert tone. And that tone is to get the officer's attention. It says, you know, it comes out beep, and it says, first thing it says is the type of crime. So if
I'm
it's,
referring to proactive, though. I understand the reactive is someone calling.
yeah,
But proactive, is there a possibility certain groups are being like,
Like black men?
right?
Yeah, again, I think the focus is on the behavior. And look at I haven't looked at it yet. So let's look at the crimes that are being charged here. So you have 23 proactive arrests for traffic stops. Okay? Then you look down at the next category, assaults and batteries. You have 13. Serious suspicious persons, you have 12. Trespass, you have 12. Disturbances, you have 12. Now, what's proactive and the highest level of proactivity is the traffic stops. But what do we have going on right now in the city that's a problem that might attract police officers' attention would be the amount of gun violence that we have in certain neighborhoods, in certain areas. How are they doing that? They're doing that by driving through the neighborhoods shooting. And when that starts to happen, then we start stopping cars that match those descriptions, and that's part of what you have as far as traffic stops. You know, could it be, I mean, and again, you don't see any other category that has that many numbers. It's primarily traffic stops.
But the data doesn't tell us who was being stopped and why.
No, it doesn't say that. But I would venture to say, if I was going to look at it, I would venture to say two things if I can pull that data up. One is going to be in areas that we've had a lot of gun violence. Two, you're right, I think it's going to be involving a lot of black males.
Because keep in mind, these are people who've been arrested, not just pulled over and stopped.
So these are people who have committed crimes, and again, who's being victimized right now the most?
Well, I get all that. I'm just trying to figure out, like, we say we pay attention to the behavior, but the reactive behavior doesn't reflect the proactive behavior. Because you have a good amount of reactive arrests, but then proactively those arrests aren't really being addressed. It doesn't appear to be, at least.
Well, let's just look at this. Let's take black males by itself. For reactive, you have 52. Look over at the other chart, proactive, you have 29.
Correct.
The leading, in each category, in each chart, the leading category are black males. So whether we're called or whether we initiate it, black males are the leading contacts. Okay, so and when we're called, that's something that's already happened and we're there. When we're proactive, we find it. So it's reflective. I think it shows, really, I would be more concerned if the proactive was a lot higher than reactive. You know, that would cause me a little more concern, but because it shows that we're being more, with reactive, we're having more arrests, then my comfort level is not as bad as it would be if it were reversed. Okay. Again, just taking a look. Mr. Blunt, you had a question?
Oh, I'm sorry, I totally, sorry.
Yeah,
I'm in a rabbit hole there.
I'm interested in, especially on the proactive side, suspicious person and suspicious activity. Are you able to come up with examples of what equals a suspicious person or a suspicious activity?
Okay, so if people walking through the neighborhood and you see them walk into someone's, not the garage, but the driveway, and they appear to be peering into the cars, you know, that's, and they don't live in the neighborhood.
So that would be suspicious activity.
That'd be suspicious. I mean,
So-
if they live, you know, completely opposite or 10 miles away, 5 miles away, and they're walking through the neighborhood, and you see them do that to a couple of, now, did they grab any door handles? No. Did they go and peer inside the car? Or did you see them do the door? But you see them peer in the car, or they look, and they don't, and they use, you know, no, that's not normal behavior, especially not 2 o'clock in the morning.
So how about suspicious person?
Yeah, what's
It's
the
the
difference
person doing
between-
those things. Okay. No,
So activity
That's
of,
interesting.
you know, again, there's no charge, and I don't know, how it listed as an arrest, I'm not aware of a charge for being a suspicious person. I just think it's categorized wrong.
It might be
I mean-
LNP, or it might have result, so suspicious person is actually off of our CAD call, so that's what the call came in as.
Yeah, this
To the
is,
center, it doesn't mean what the charge ended up at the end, that's what
Yeah.
it got called in as.
the 13P is just, for the radio system, it's a classification of the activity. But when we get there, we investigate, we may find out this person committed prowling. They were loitering and prowling.
Yeah,
But there's no such thing as a charge for being suspicious.
I'm just
Otherwise, some of us
particularly
might be arrested, you know.
particularly interested in that one because I've experienced that. It was a different
Yeah.
agency, UPD, not GPD, but my suspicious behavior was asleep and snoring in a lounge chair in a staff lounge. So I just wondered,
You weren't arrested for that though, right?
no.
They can't arrest you for looking
Yeah.
suspicious or being suspicious.
Yeah, but I couldn't understand why somebody who's obviously staff and wearing ID is checked out for suspicious activity when they're sleeping
Yeah.
in a staff lounge.
You could have just attributed that to age or something like that.
There's age.
Oh, zing.
I can say that to him because we're close in age.
I,
Okay.
there you go.
All right, sworn complaints for adults, proactive versus reactive. Again, you see that when you examine this chart, the number of sworn complaints here is, for reactive. Again, this is us responding to a location. And why you might have this here, the higher number as opposed to proactive, if it's proactive, we're there, we actually caught the person, more than likely, and made a decision to go ahead and issue them a sworn complaint as opposed to taking them to jail. Or we know who they are, we get there and they run off and there's somebody like me who couldn't catch them now and they got away, but we just do the sworn complaint. But you see the breakdown for that. The highest level, assault and battery, 25 were reactive. 25 of those. The theft, 8. Disturbances, 7. And again, the disturbances, no such charge as disturbance. It would be something like, it could be a fight, a battery, or it could be a violation of conduct, the conduct law, disorderly conduct, or something like that. Same thing with special suspicious activity further down. Next, you deal with the pre-arrest, adult, proactive, and reactive. Typically, that's going to be a proactive thing. We're out, we see something, we make contact with folks. You can see here that pre-arrest, we had 4 white males, 4 white females, 2 black males. In the reactive, we had 1 black female and 1 white female. The violations, 7 of the proactive were beverage violations. Juvenile problem was 1, and then shoplifting the other. As you can see, these are less serious crimes and allows us to take some other use some of our tool out of our toolbox. Notice to appear, we have a total, yes.
What's increased patrol?
That's what
What's
I was
that?
wondering too.
That's,
That's just,
there's crime in a certain area, and the officers take the initiative to patrol that area.
yeah, and it could be the officer, we put it out that, hey, we're having people who are stealing or burglarizing cars in this neighborhood, or that we're concerned about, students fighting at a certain school, so we want folks to go out and increase patrol or drive through that neighborhood to be seen a little bit more. So, again, some of this data here, and we'll have this corrected. This shouldn't be listed as an arrest or a pre-arrest. There are specific crimes that are attached to this. This came directly out of the CAD system, and we'll correct that. The notice to appear for proactive and reactive arrest, you have a total of 3. 2 white males and 1 white female for proactive, reactive, and all three of those citations were issued in a proactive posture. So that's something the officer observed and then wrote the citation for. Juvenile arrest, as you can see, the proactive were 6 total and the reactive were 7 total, so about even. You can see that the assist citizen was the call, but that means that somebody called us and they were having a problem with someone and we responded and ended up arresting someone. That's not the appropriate charge. Increased patrol, same thing. Suspicious person, same thing. So we have to do a little better job at gathering our data and make sure that explanation is there for those points. The sworn complaints for juveniles, you see the vast majority of those are reactive. You know, and here you have 11 that are black female, 5 that are black male, and 2 that are white male. When you compare that with the proactive, you have 2 black males, black females, I'm sorry, that were arrested, and you have 1 white female that were not arrested but issued sworn complaints. Yes, Mr. Brooks.
Does this mean that in this category, officers just tended to try not to approach or mess with juveniles until something's really happening and they have to do it?
No, it just means that when we got there, I mean, in the situation that we respond to here, we do a sworn complaint or we'll take them out to JAG, or honestly, there's a large share of crimes here that don't get recorded either way. So I may be dealing with an issue with some juveniles, as opposed to me writing a report and charging someone. I may call a mom and say, will you come get Junior? And you need to, or take them home and say, Junior was doing this and doing that. A lot of that doesn't get recorded. You won't see it, and that happens quite often because 1, the officer doesn't want to have to write a report. 2, the officer realizes that it's a really minor violation. It's something that they can handle and really be more effective. I could tell you a story of me 3 o'clock in the morning dealing with a 15-year-old kid who was drunk. And he was quite frankly going into the wrong house, going to somebody's house. And we realized he was drunk, called his mom. He didn't want us to call his mom. We called his mom. She came out. She got there about 3:45, and she went to pointing the finger and yelling, and we think that we serve better that young man, quite frankly, and really the community in our time by dealing with it that way. It could have been handled differently. We could have, basically he's intoxicated, stumbling through the streets. Could you say it's disorderly and or attempted burglary? We think he was too drunk to figure that out. But, that's stuff that that's a whole different way of handling it.
Yes, Mr. Brown.
I just, it's based on my own experience, especially when I was an officer at the University of Florida, and especially on the football games when a lot of the fans had too much to drink, and then they had to react, find out what was going on. And in a lot of those cases I dealt with, it was a simple matter of ejecting them from the football game, not allowing them back in the stadium. Of course, it didn't always happen that way. There's some cases where the fans, because they were drunk, got too aggressive and pushed me or resisted, then that changed the whole ball game. So most of those cases I dealt with, the reactive cases, depending on what I had to deal with those fans at those football games. In most cases, I'm glad to say it was just a matter of ejecting them from the game, and they were not allowed to come back in. And then if it went too far, then again, it led to arrest. One situation, I was trying to, there used to be a bar called the Purple Porpoise
Oh, yeah.
on University Avenue.
Yeah,
And so I had a female that walked from that bar on the campus, and I got a call, and I was trying to really help her. And everything was fine until she dug her fingernails into my skin. And that changed everything quickly to BLEO, so she had to go to jail, but it can change very quickly as, you know, it happens. But that was my experience. Now I'm happy to say I didn't have to do a lot of wrestling with a lot of those football fans. I left that to the bigger guys. I didn't have to deal with that. But it depends on what you have when you get there, what you hear, what you see, and so forth. And it can change in a matter of seconds. That's just the name of the game.
and I think, I wish we could start recording it, but we have officers that deal with minor offenses and never arrest anyone. Never give them a record. You know, you catch people with stuff. I mean, I'll admit I used to catch people when open container was illegal. Out in Kennedy Homes, I've got 7 people sitting right there drinking. You know, they're not supposed to do it. They're being loud and stuff, and I walk up and okay, fellas, you can't do this. You let me catch you, so you're not good at it. So you have a choice, okay? You can pour the alcohol out, pick up these cans, and we call it even, or, we could do it another way. 99% of the times, they pour it out. Man, can I get one more swig? No, you can't do that, and they go, no problem. That was never recorded. Now, what could have happened is I came in, wrote all those people NTAs, and or took them to jail, which I'm not going to do, but wrote them NTAs. Now, everybody has a criminal record for them. But I can't tell, and I'm not the exception. There's plenty of officers that did that. That did that for minor violations and go, you stop people for traffic violations. Same thing. Could you please pay attention? I stopped a gentleman the other day, which I barely stop people now. And, I stopped him, sir, any particular reason why you speeding like this? And, he had a very good reason. I'm going to the cancer hospital. My wife has got to have surgery. I'm trying to get there.
One thing that always pleased me when I was a youth was that, well, of course, the policy is when you do a stop, it's automatic backup. And most times I was backed up by a big, giant officer by the name of Doc Lucky.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so when the offender would begin to get very aggressive, he would look at Doc Lucky, and he would realize that that's not going to be a good idea. And he would kind of back down. And now, again, that was fine with me. I had no problem with that.
Okay. If you look at the breakdown of juvenile sworn complaints, you see most of those are for theft, disturbances, assault and batteries, domestic disturbance, and physical fight. Most of these are violent, initiated, or have the potential for violence. The next category is juvenile civil citations. We issued 2 to 2 black males, and we issued 1 to a white male. The 2 that we issued were for narcotics violation, but proactive. So that's some officer that either rode up on somebody smoking or something along those lines, and as opposed to taking them to jail, gave them a civil citation, and these are juveniles. You had 1 shoplifter that was in custody. That was a reactive response. And that concludes the review for the reactive and proactive arrest.
Thank you.
Any questions on that?
Any questions? I mean, I think this provides us with a blueprint of just a sample of a month, and, just like Mr. Johnson had some good questions, everybody had good questions, but there's so many ways you can go down various data trails to try to glean something, but I really do appreciate this, and, we learned some things, so thank you.
I mean, it helped, I think this is something I pushed to my supervisor. if you can't explain why you're doing something, you probably don't need to be doing it.
There you go.
And, you know, I invite the questions because we ought to be able to explain what's going on. If we can't, then we need to look at it and see, should we continue doing it? So, thank you for the questions,
you.
I appreciate it.
Ms. Payne?
Yes, ma'am. That was your cue, right?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for testifying. I feel like it makes me show my age or whatever, and I understand all the arguments about African Americans don't have a place to party and people are homeless, but it's ridiculous to think the open container that the police could handle the big mobs downtown.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that you were able to put some sense into the city commission. I wrote letters, just made me seem like an old fogey, but
Yeah.
people don't need to be walking around drinking with guns in people's cars that they're taking.
Yeah, it's, you know, I do realize that folks have to have a place to go. And we can't, as a police department, we can't say that's not our problem. It is our problem. You know, so we have to work with the other entities, other community builders, and try to find, you know, viable, safe environments. I mean, look at what's going on nationally. You know, folks shooting folks, and I mean, it's, I mean, you know, to take it being your kid, your family, before you feel a passion for it, you know, all of us feel that passion in law enforcement. We want to make the difference. You know, we want, so if they can come up with an idea that we can support, we'll support it. But, you know, to think that, you know, drinking on any street corner or
Yeah.
at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning is going to be, no, it's, and we only have so many resources. I just got through a meeting with my captains and command staff earlier, and decrying the fact that, you know, we're being pinched even harder. And there's just some things we can't do. We like to be a full-service agency. But, you know, when you call us and you have to wait 2 or 3 hours for us to send somebody to you, that's a problem. That's a problem. So we're trying to, you know, and we're stuck in the fact that to train people, we need officers to do that have experience, but we have a lot of young folks who don't have that requisite experience. So how do we get the training so we can hire 20 officers, but we can only train 10 at a time? That's a problem. So we have to try to crawl out of this hole, and I have to commend my officers. You know, we're doing the work. I'm short probably 20 officers in patrol, but those officers do that work. They go out and they take care of it every day. You know, and I don't get a whole lot of griping. I do get some people that leave, but I don't get a whole lot of griping. You know, they go out and they do what they need to do. So, especially when someone's calling and they're in danger. You know, that's what I want. And we're not going to wait at the door. We're coming in. So I appreciate the time, and please, thank you, and keep the questions coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you, we appreciate you. Well, the next item of business are our closed IA case review, and we've got 3. I'm looking forward to seeing what Chief Inspector Koenig has. She may drag up Lieutenant Durst, I'm not sure.
No, I apologize, he was gonna fill in for me, I just got in from New York, I just got off the airplane,
Well,
so,
welcome back.
thanks so much. So I was like, please be ready in case my plane is canceled, I've heard that happen a couple times, so, Madam Chair, would you like me to review the cases as I've done in the past, or just address the questions that we received on because, I mean, I have...
Yeah, what would the board like to see here? How much detail? Not a lot, a little bit?
We got a chance to go through them.
Yeah, I mean, I read them, but I
Yeah.
just, okay, just,
I only had questions about one of them.
okay, so why don't you just go short and we can ask questions?
Okay, perfect. So I'll just quickly review the 2 that don't have questions, and that'll go the fastest. So the first one came in on December 21st. This involved the complainant, Ms. Larkin, and she felt as if she was treated unfairly or discriminated against during a traffic crash that happened in the 1500 block of Northwest 13th Street in regards to her mental health status. We reviewed the entire case, the body-worn camera, the officers. She was pretty incapacitated after the accident. She was very shook up. And when that happens, what we want to do is get the person to the hospital, get them medical treatment, make sure that their health concerns are taken care of. And then we go to the hospital after the fact and, have the conversation. But we had multiple witnesses. The officers did the appropriate thing in this. And there was nothing to indicate they had any idea about her mental health incapacity or capacity. They just thought she was injured. So the case ended up being unfounded against the two officers. And it was thoroughly reviewed, all the body-worn camera and all that. So does anybody have any questions or anything about that case?
Any questions on this case?
No, it's straightforward.
It was pretty straightforward. All right, the next one that I think
Okay.
is also going to be straightforward.
Absolutely. So this is, I apologize, I didn't read the case number in the last one. This is 22-011. This is Ms. Han that complained that an officer was discriminating against her by giving information to her apartment complex about some illegal activity that happened. It involved a traffic stop from some individuals that left her apartment that resulted in an arrest with a firearm, and that's for sure. But I come to realize that I don't know if she knew the officer that she was alleging the complaint against, because he is of a different race than the officer that she described. And so it definitely isn't the officer that was involved in this. And so basically we found that Officer Guyton was not involved, and he wasn't the individual that prompted this. But the one thing I will say is this, is that we have a very open relationship with our apartment complexes. And if incidents happen on their property and they request information, especially about violent crimes or things that are happening on it, Florida state statutes, public law, we've got sunshine laws, so we provide reports to apartment complexes all the time. And it could be, as long as we follow Florida state statute guidelines, we're well within our ability to be able to do that. So this one was definitely, Officer Guyton was not involved in this one. So does anyone have any questions on this case?
No? I'm pleased to hear that you have those good relationships with the apartments. I think that's helpful for you.
Always a plus.
Yeah,
Always
it's got to be
a plus.
very helpful.
And so the last case is the one with the questions. And this one is 21-049, and this happened at Lexington Crossing Apartments. The date that we received it was October 25th of 2021. The actual date that it occurred was September 30th, 2021. We basically responded to an individual that was breaking into cars and conveyance burglary in progress. We ended up shifting that perimeter around a little bit and moving between complexes when officers saw that individual running. And we had set up around a kind of like a retention pond, a big open field that's in and behind. And we had the officer who observed the individual and had the perception that that individual was coming at her, gave verbal commands to the individual. The individual did not stop, and ended up discharging her firearm into the ground. So we worked that case, and it did become sustained, and you guys can see it had a little bit longer of an investigation, but we did sustain that case. And so it was, Rule 13 productivity, a Rule 30, and she got the employee notice, which is a formal written, a 5-day suspension, and she'll be remanded back out to training. And because of this, she will also be sent to the CJSTC for certification, which we do for cases like this with major discipline. But the questions that I received, if you would like me to go through them, I can do that, or if you
Sure.
guys would like me to.
So you've got some questions submitted. Why don't we start there and see if you can clarify and see if there's any further questions?
Okay, and so Ms. Payne, I know this was from your email, so why would Detective Pinkston consider this a potential criminal investigation? So the burglary conveyance immediately starts it with a criminal investigation, but the question as to whenever someone dispels their firearm, there's always that question. So it doesn't matter whether it's initially reported as an accidental and we look at forensics, we get some more information, things come out. So Detective Pinkston is deducing that, as any good detective would. So, and an intentional discharge of a firearm too. Too much radio chatter, what are the rules? We have, I don't want to say we have rules that are written down that says how much radio chatter happens on any call for service, but the good officers will stay off the radio unless it's absolutely necessary. And I think peer-to-peer, we actually all check each other. If you're on the radio too long and something big is happening and you're the one something's happening to you, everybody else will tell you to be quiet on the radio, because it's most important that we listen to the person who's engaged with the other individual. So there are rules guiding radio usage and stuff like that, but there's not anything formal that anyone would be disciplined for, other than foul language, anything that would be inappropriate that you would say both in person and on the radio. And I promise you,
She just seemed to bring that up often. So I was wondering if that, that she couldn't cut in.
And sometimes if somebody sees a person running or sees something, and there's a little delay too, if you've ever heard the police radio when are you getting your, that's Sheila. If you hold that button and you forget to release it, and I've done it myself, it'll hold that channel and no one else can talk. So unless she pushed her ECB button, which is the orange button on the radio, which gives you emergency traffic, she wouldn't be able to overtalk anyone else. So that's happened to me on many occasions, and trust me, I talked to the person who was on the radio. Code of Conduct, Rule 19 seems inadequate for this situation. Again, I asked why the police department does not have separate policies, rules of conduct, and codes. Would you like me to read?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a reform.
Okay.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I didn't want to read that, but so the reason that we follow the E3 that we talk about all the time from the city of Gainesville, which I provided several times, is to make sure that the discipline is fair and consistent. And if you look at the matrix and how kind of each offense rolls, it's just to make sure we're following those guidelines. So some offenses, and you guys know that some offenses are an employee notice off the first one, which is written instruction and cautioning. Some is employee notice 40 hours off. Some is, so it can be up to 24 hours off. But it's just to make sure we have a code set that has the same discipline for offenses that are repeated by different people. So it's practicing procedural justice internally to the agency as it would be externally outside of our agency. So that's the easiest way. We could create, the potential is there could be some direction to create our own, but that's not what we've done for the past, I don't know how long we've had E3, I'd have to look, but for a very long time.
To call it a productivity issue is like, what?
But we, just a point of information, there is at least one modification we will be making. We're going to be creating or going with our internal general order for some violations, because I'm not comfortable with the language that the city uses to describe a violation. There's a violation that's titled unlawful, immoral, or improper conduct, and it covers a wide, I think too wide of an array, and we have things that are more specific in our department policy. So if you had improper conduct, and say you just said something you weren't supposed to, you said something to a coworker, that's maybe sexually suggestive or something like that, and we charge you with improper conduct, what would show up on your record is unlawful, immoral, and improper. Mm-hmm. And that gives, the improper conduct is bad enough, right, but to say unlawful, immoral, or improper, I just think that covers too much, so we will start utilizing department general orders where that particular city policy, city violation might have been used before. And it was primarily because of my uncomfortableness with, you imagine you pick up a police officer's record and you read something that says unlawful, you're thinking right off the bat, wow, but all that may have happened was he or she may have said something that was inappropriate or some other improper conduct, but not something that was unlawful or immoral. because with law enforcement, those two terms could cost you the certification,
Yeah, that's a good point.
okay?
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How experienced is this officer? Like, how long has she been on the force?
She has not been on the force very long.
That's
She's a
kind of what I
very-
figured.
She's
Very-
at like about the 3-year mark, I think.
Okay,
I'd have to look, it's not very long, no.
yeah.
She's one of our newer. So, if there's one more.
Oh, go ahead.
So I don't
Go
forget, and I apologize, so thank you for, Sheila took a lot of time to submit
No,
the
I
questions
appreciate
to
that.
us, so we appreciate that. Most curious, what happened to the suspect while the police at the site were interrogating the firearms discharge? So typically on calls like this, or any calls that we have where we hear gunfire, could be, I would say, sometimes we have a lot of casings that we locate on the ground, is the officers go and check the hospitals. They'll call them, they'll go in, and the hospitals are mandated when they get a gunshot wound to call us, or call a law enforcement agency, whether it's us or UPD or whoever's jurisdiction it is, and then we end up responding. But we went and checked those to make sure that a person didn't come into the hospital. We also checked the area to see if we could locate him, but he was very fast and long gone. So unfortunately, we did not make contact with him, and we may never know who that individual is. We did recover both one shell casing and the projectile in the ground. Without knowing anything other than that, we did what we normally do, which is check for people. Go ahead,
Yes,
Cal.
Mr. Block?
I
Mr.
thought I
Watt.
just saw that the projectile was located in the fence.
It actually was in the ground. It went through the fence.
Oh,
So there was a fence that she was standing in front of, and it went, right, and it went through the fence. It actually skidded across into the ground horizontally.
so we don't know
Okay,
how,
yeah.
we don't know how close it came to the person.
We don't, no, sir. Mr. Dunkel.
Was there any action taken against the officer's state certification?
So that's the CJ, I apologize, the Criminal Justice Standard and Training Commission from FDLE. Once the investigation was complete, all this information along with an FDLE form is sent up to the hearing board, and then they determine what will happen with the case. Typically, it takes several months for them to come back in either direction, so it would be with them.
That's what that. And the other I had is, as I was reading this, it appeared that this officer had a flashlight mounted to the sidearm.
Yes.
And the flashlight was the officer's property, their personal property. It wasn't checked out, if you will.
Sure.
So I'm assuming there was no training on having a flashlight on a sidearm because, again, as I was reading it, it sounded as if there was some difficulty with that.
So we do have issued lights that go onto during the time she may have come on, maybe they weren't, but she had to have that approved through the training department in order for her to carry it on the sidearm, and we verified it was approved by our training division. So they approve if you want to carry a different piece of equipment on you that's very different from what we issue, you have to go through training and make sure you become, so they have to approve her in order to carry that. And it was approved, and she did have permission to use it.
Thanks.
So she was struggling with that, and as police officers, I think we all are responsible for everything we carry to make sure we're proficient. That's our job, so.
Okay, are there more questions or comments about this IA case? All right, well, thank you, and appreciate the effort, and I know that one especially took a lot of investigation and a lot of time on that, so I know it's.
Yes, absolutely. I just wanted to mention one thing. So Chief Scott is absolutely right. The calls for service that were on the proactive versus reactive, I think part of the reason, and we pulled that data so long ago, Chief, was to show you guys that we do get called for like a juvenile problem. And I will tell you, my first year as a police officer, I got called to a juvenile problem. A mom called me about getting a kid to go to school, and that she couldn't get him to go, and he refused, and I showed up, and dispatch told me both mom and the son had, active warrants. So a juvenile problem, which you're going just to talk to a kid to get him to go to school, and you end up making an arrest. Sometimes as law enforcement officers, we respond to a suspicious incident, we respond to all these other things, and other crimes, which aren't even listed in the calls for service, you become aware of. And as a law enforcement officer, you have to do them. And I mean, I remember going to a trespassing call that turned into a sexual battery and a sexual battery investigation. And it's amazing as we navigate in this world. It is very different every time you go to a call for service, because sometimes people really trust you and want to tell you what's happening. So we will clean up that data for next time, and if you want something a little bit more specific, we can make that happen also. And just in response to Sheila's request for the trespass after warning, and we sent it to crime analysis, but they've got to read every single report. And that's the hardest part. It's a lot of work on the back end. So we can't usually get those done in 7 days, but if after about 21, we can probably make it all happen. Okay? Just want to mention.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Yes.
All right, next on our agenda is public comment. And I'm presuming we are good to go, that there's no public comment. And,
May I say that's a problem?
well, it is, but it is June, and people are pretty scarce right now. So, but I hear you.
Yeah.
Everything I've done this month, I feel like everywhere I go is nice and quiet in Gainesville, and I think it's
I
a
love
quiet. There are advantages as well as disadvantages. You get lower attendance at your meetings. So, Police Advisory Council comments. Yes.
I have a question. I know this Saturday is the City of Gainesville Services Fair.
My
And-
question too.
And I already indicated I was going to be there, but do we know what's going to be happening? Or will there be a table or
I honestly
any
know very little.
brochures or anything?
I'm out of town,
From the
so I
PhD?
tuned out
Yeah.
quickly. I have to
We
confess.
have a tablecloth that we had printed up for
Awesome.
the committee, and we have a brochure, trifold brochure, that we have to give the finishing touches to the contact person. I approved that, and Ms. Deb's going to send that out. We'll have those printed up, ready to go on the table that same day.
Well, thank you to all who can stop by and work the table and help out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I intend to be there for the whole thing.
Thank you. Well,
So
may
when I
not-
show up at 10:30, you'll be there, I don't have to worry about.
Yeah, so I think you can, just show up if you
So,
can.
so who's setting it up? Having table, oh, that's nice. Who's bringing the stuff?
Yeah, I like that. I
Will the
like
staff,
that.
will the staff set up the table or be there, or is this entirely the board
We'll
members?
get it done.
So our actual personnel division will be there.
Okay.
And I'll make sure I give them this, and we'll
Perfect.
bring an
I like
extra
that.
table, and they can set it up for you and
I'll
have
be
the
there.
brochures.
Yeah.
When
All right.
is this again?
Saturday.
Saturday,
This Saturday.
At what time?
9 to
During the
12.
day,
Read your emails.
I'm being handcuffed to the grill, so
I've
I'll
seen you in
be,
that role before. I'm
Yeah.
confident in your abilities.
I'll be there again.
Yes, Mr. Bullock.
Sorry to have a competing announcement. Saturday
welcome.
from 10 to 2:30 at the GTEC Center, there will be an event called Community Expo on mental health care in the Black community.
Excellent.
I'll be panelist in
Thank
that.
you.
There'll be several organizations tabling there, and it's free, and there'll be some light refreshments.
Excellent. And be sure to recommend people stop by the city services as well. Sheila?
So can I recommend, just because I table a lot with different groups, activists, if there's a sign-up sheet for people who would like someone to contact them, people like to think that they can sign up and get help. Can we do that? Some kind of thing that people can, and it should look official, that, in my neighborhood, this is happening. Can somebody contact me?
Okay.
Can we have that? Or do
Is
people
that-
think that's okay?
I mean, I don't have a problem. They're going to work directly with, you're staffing a table on behalf of citizens working with GPD. So sure, I think if somebody would like to, please contact me about this issue or something like that. I don't think people want to, detail their
Right,
too much.
right.
But please contact me. Certainly, I think that's not a bad idea to
And they can
have.
provide a phone number
Yeah,
and an address, and we can give it to the respective district captain, and they can follow up.
Okay, so it should be like their name, phone number.
Yeah, and some
Yeah.
idea of what is it a problem, or do they just want to meet the what they would like.
Yeah, and I think that this is part of our gathering information from citizens about what they might want from the board. So I think there's your
Outreach.
opportunity to ask, because, you know, it's like anything, right? You could be totally overwhelmed by people. I don't know what Saturday
No one
brings.
may come up.
Someone will be there. It'll be fine.
Sheila, I'll make sure I come in the early morning and I'll stand by the table until you, or whoever wants to come and relieve me, and then I'll hang out with personnel and the chief. So I'll make sure someone's there at this table
And can
to
we have
answer
more,
questions.
can more than one of us be there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's not
Yeah,
an issue.
whoever is available Saturday, even if you can just stop by, that's fantastic. I regret I'm out of town, but I think that's awesome.
As long as you don't discuss items to be
Yeah,
voted on in the
we're not going to
agenda.
be discussing items before us on the agenda, but thank you for the reminder.
But I'm gonna be there before the actual event starts.
That's right, talk to citizens, see what their issues are.
Well, Chief Jones is coming on the 29th to Pine Ridge. 'Cause I
Yay,
had asked if our board could be there, they're having a lot of issues.
sure, if you just
But
let us
he's-
know.
He's coming, for, like, the whole heads of departments are gonna come,
Oh,
code
great.
and everything.
Yeah, it's the
You're gonna be
community-
there,
It's a community first program
yeah.
Great.
where we are all assigned certain areas to be champions for. And then we come there to identify problems that might exist or issues. And then we bring all the resources to all the department heads, show up. So if you have an issue that deals with Parks and Recreation, our person's there. If you have an issue that deals with the streets, we have people there. So anything that the city does, there'll be someone there to address it. So
The heads,
the head-
heads.
the
typically
heads of the
heads.
department,
And it's
yeah.
good, and it's good for the heads of the department to get out and about to the community. I mean, that's really the hardest thing when you're in these jobs, is you get stuck in your office and then you don't get to go out and see what's going on in the city. So I think that sounds fantastic.
Are you talking about us having a meeting in that thing?
Yeah, no, I brought that up, but I talked to Chief Jones, and he's actually bringing, because that's his sector, and he's bringing all the heads. I mean, when people can use a butter knife to get into someone's front locked door, and code hasn't addressed it, that's an issue, and they've had shots fired out there.
Perhaps after the meeting, we can ask GPD to just sort of summarize what the highlights were, what the, you know, what the conversation was about. Because we could eventually do, I mean, I have no problem with doing a meeting at Pine Ridge in the future, but I think that would be interesting for this board.
I like that, yeah.
Okay. I have a comment, and I'm going to drag Mr. Johnson into it. The training we went to, it feels very long ago, doesn't it?
That's what I was
We went to the
HPI.
NPI training, and I summarized it briefly before and said I enjoyed it, I learned some things, and it was really nice for me to spend time with people that are from the community that I don't know, which these days I feel like I see the same 5 people all the time. And it was really nice to get to meet a lot of the officers who are up and coming, whether either they're new or in training. And it had some experienced officers as well, a few I haven't seen in a long time, and we both did the, hey, you're still around, all right. So it's good, it's good. What, anything you want to add on that, or what you
No, but
observed?
those officers that we attended with got sworn,
Yeah,
they
they
get sworn
got
today?
Yes.
They got sworn in Friday.
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 Oh, that's awesome.
I like the fact that we were able to get that integration and you get a chance to see the people who are gonna be out there, because
Yes.
there'll be different people when you see them in
Right.
about another 6 to 8
Right.
months, you know, they'll be different. But I think they needed to, and the whole intent for that training is for them to see it from a different perspective.
There was a wide range of people in the room. I mean, it was just, it was a pretty interesting slice of different citizens and future officers and current officers, and it was really, I enjoyed listening to the experienced officers explain some of their experience or how their perspective on how they decide this versus that, because you know, not only were the citizens very interested, but the new officers were clearly interested as well in those, here's my scenario, what would you do kind of thing. It was worth it.
How
So,
long did they keep
good.
you there?
I was, I think 1:30ish, 2ish,
Okay.
2ish, yeah.
It originally was a 10-hour block.
Yeah, I
but
know.
We've kind of taken
I
it
took
down
the
a bit.
opportunity to say, you know, all right, I will take this, I'll see you later. at 2. So I stayed till 2, it was good.
So, I mean, again, we need feedback on that training, if there's things that we might need to do to improve it.
Thought it was really good,
We'd love to
actually.
hear that, but we think, we're trying to set that relationship that the community and the officer, or the citizen and the officer, the neighboring officer, feel comfortable talking together about what the problems are and then how to solve them. You know, so if we did that, we accomplished our goal.
No, it was good, I enjoyed it, and I would recommend, I know some of you have signed up or are looking at future dates, and I will just tell you, it was good.
I've been.
Yeah, I think you said you had been.
Yeah, Tully?
Oh, you
And
want to
I wish
go?
I could come, but I'm
You wanna
here
go
on duty.
again?
You can only do so much at the same
Go
time, my
again?
friend.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I don't want to go
I
by
got too much work
myself.
to do.
Anybody else, any other comments? All right, our next meeting is scheduled for July 27th, here, and we will check, make sure we can have a quorum. I feel like this is that tough time of year where people start to travel, but we will plan from there, and hopefully Dr. Purvis will be back from his adventures. And I
He's
will
back
certainly.
this week.
Yeah, where is he? He's in Chicago or something.
Yeah, some conference.
Yeah, I like giving him a hard time. It's kind of
Yeah,
fun.
we're having lunch next week, that's.
Oh, he's a good guy. So I appreciate it. All right, if there's no objection, I will adjourn the meeting. Seeing none,
Thank you.
meeting adjourned.